Hi everybody, Jillian here. Welcome back to my channel for another Heritage Scrapbook process video. Today I'm sharing perhaps the most grisly thing I've ever documented. This is the second part in a three-part mini-series, I guess we could call it, on how to include historical documents into your Heritage Scrapbook pages. I'm going to be using these two photos I printed on my Canon selfie, one at 3x4 and one at about 2x2. They are of a man named Julius Erasmus, taken about the 1860s. I'm also going to include this newspaper article that I obtained from newspapers.com describing his final days and his unfortunate suicide. So what I'm going to be using is that floral paper from the Crepe Paper Wonder collection, a few label pieces I thought I might use from Crepe Paper's Close Knit collection. I'm not sure where that 4x6 card is from. I have October Afternoon Daily Flash stickers and a few thicker options to use. So I'm going to start by cutting my background sheet, this wood grain paper, down to 9x12. But before I do that, I remember that I wanted to show you guys this paper pad that I bought at Michael's. It was one of their hot buys, so I got it for about $5, and it has all of these great neutral pattern papers that are great for backgrounds. And so I bought this specifically for my heritage layouts because they're just really great neutral backdrops for these stories. So if you're interested in that, your local Michael's might still have that. I got it just before the holidays. Okay, so back to the layout. I'm cutting that down to 9x12, and then I immediately realized that I cut the wrong portion off of the page. It's not a big deal because that floral pattern paper is going to cover up the part that I'm not crazy about. Here I'm just trying to figure out the basic construction of my layout. I knew that I definitely wanted to have two different size photos. The one on the top was taken about 1863, and the resolution is not great. It is a photocopy of the original, and I wanted to print that small because the resolution wasn't great. So for the title, I'm spelling out his name, and I knew that I wanted to use these gray thickers because they were pretty subtle, but I didn't have enough S's, and so that made that decision really quick. Instead, I opted for these Fitzgerald thickers. I think they're from Chamel's first collection with American Crafts, but I'm not sure. But they're definitely the Fitzgerald font. So I wasn't crazy about the heaviness of the black, but it works and it's fine now that it's done. So this is basically what the construction of the page is going to look like. I used those October Afternoon tile alpha stickers to note the date that the top photo was taken about 1863. Fortunately, it had the date written on the back. It was taken in Berlin, and just the detail on the back of these photos from these studios and the handwriting, and it's amazing to see these original documents. If you guys ever have the opportunity to do these kinds of projects, then I highly recommend it. It's just so cool to see how they did things so long ago. So now that I have a pretty good idea of where everything's going, I'm going to get it adhered down, and it is crooked, so your eyes are not playing tricks on you. The floral piece of paper was a scrap that I had, and I just assumed that that it was straight, and it's not. So I'm going to fix that in the end, but it stays crooked for a little bit. Now, the newspaper clipping is just printed on computer paper. I don't love the stark white with the creams and the wood grain of this layout, so eventually I'll go back. I thought about printing it on vellum, but for this video, I didn't want to wait. I wanted to hurry up and create this, so this is kind of like a stand-in document. So I'm putting down the title here, and these are foam thickers, and I always forget when I buy thickers online that I don't like foam. These move around a lot, unlike chipboard, and so they kind of have like this wonky feel, and that's certainly not the look that I'm going for on these layouts. So next I decide to bring in a little more of the floral and specifically the pinks and the teal. So I'm fussy cutting one of these flowers from the pattern paper. And typically I wouldn't use, these florals on a layout about a man, but he was a poet, and I'll share with you guys the specifics kind of about his death, and because he was a poet, I felt like I can make it work in my mind. Okay, so next what I'm doing here is I'm taking this border punch from American Crafts. I've only ever used it once, and I want to bring some more detail into the layout. So I'm going to go ahead and punch the edge of this piece of pattern paper. I was really crossing my fingers here, and I only messed it up once, and it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing, but it's probably going to be a really long time before I get this thing out again because I didn't remove the adhesive from the back, and so it made it a little more tricky than usual. Okay, phew. So now that's done, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it down. I also decided that the document here needed a little more weight on the page, so I pulled this scrap piece of pattern paper from the Dear Lizzie Daydreamer collection. And I was either going to go with that red, which I kind of wanted to bring out a little more in the layout, or the reverse. And I ended up using the reverse because I already have a little more red on the layout. And it's subtle, but it provides a little something else. So next I'm going to get started on the journaling, and I used some facts that we had obtained from Ancestry.com to go ahead and get this down. It just says Julius is Stephen's third great-grandfather who was born in Germany around 1832. He emigrated to the U.S. around 1869. He was a poet, but a weaver by trade. This article from the Pittsburgh Daily Post describes the unfortunate final days of his life in September 1882. And I'm not going to read the newspaper clipping to you guys, it's a little long, but I found another blurb that was printed in a Boston newspaper, and it's pretty concise. And so it says, September 20th, Julius Erasmus, a poetic contributor to most of the leading German papers of the country, this afternoon wrote a touching poem of 15 verses entitled The Singer's Death, descriptive of his domestic trouble, signed his name to it, drew a pistol, and blew his brains out. On the weapon was a card saying, Give this exclusively to my murderer, meaning his wife, with whom he led an unhappy life. So what this newspaper article that is adhered down describes is he and his estranged wife lived apart from each other, and he had feelings for this neighbor woman nearby. And his wife, refused to give him a divorce, and so he was very, very unhappy about that. Wrote this poem, which was translated and published in this newspaper article, and then unfortunately decided to end his life. So I know some of you may think that it's distasteful to share this kind of thing in this space, and I feel like it's in multiple newspapers. It's pretty easily accessible. You may not know that it's my family, but it's out there, and it is what it is, and I think it's important for our family to know about it, so that's why I'm including it here. Here's a final look at my layout along with a few close-ups, and then you can see that I ended up adding a puffy sticker also from the Wonder collection to bring the floral in just above the journaling. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to tune in next week for my final installment of how to use documents in your Heritage Scrapbook pages. See you soon!